Hello, I have Tom here with me today. Hi, Tom.
Hello.
How
Nice to
are
see you.
you?
Very well, thank you. Yes, all good.
Could you tell me about the situation with coronavirus in the UK?
Yeah, of course. Been in lockdown for about 6 weeks now. Um, we the initial measures put in place were to only go out for essential shopping and for one kind of bit of exercise a day. If you could work from home, then you're supposed to work from home. But if you're obviously an essential worker, then you have to take precautions when going out. For me, I'm a music support worker with adults with kind of disabilities. So the centres that I work in had all closed down and stopped functioning. So I'm furloughed, which means that my wages have been cut to 80%, but they're being paid by the government. So the company I work for aren't paying my wages at the moment. The government are paying 80% of my wages, which is fine. It gets me by, especially because I'm not spending any money doing anything. Sat at home all day. So most people in the UK are furloughed, which is quite a funny word. My wife is a NHS speech and language therapist. The NHS is the health service here, and she's still working from home. So she's doing that still. She does 2 days a week at an office somewhere, and 2 days a week at home. She doesn't have to meet anybody during this time period, so it's pretty safe for her. What else has been? So one of the things that's been happening, which is it's not a government sanctioned thing, but there's something called clapping for your carers. I think that might be something that's happening in a few places over the world. So every Thursday at 8 p.m., everyone stands on their front doorstep and applauds the health workers and the key workers of England. And it's quite nice because you get to see all your neighbours and you wave at everybody and say hello. And that's been something that's nice and rousing for everybody to kind of keep the morale up. It's nice. So those are some of the changes that have happened so far. It's been very interesting for us.
And what about if you go outside? Do you need to wear a mask?
No, the mask thing has been. You hear lots of different things about the face mask, about how useful it is, or if it works at all. So it's not been. There's no government advice on it actually. I know a lot of people are wearing them. I think it's more effective if you have the virus, then you wear a face mask to contain it. If you don't have it, then a face mask doesn't really do much to protect you because it can go in your eyes and other ways of it's mainly because it's on your hands and you touch your face or something. So yeah, there's no real guidance on that. Although I think so. Sunday just gone, Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, has just put out a kind of he calls it a roadmap, a plan to start lifting the lockdown over the next month or two. And whereas the government advice was three things. It was stay home, support the NHS, and save lives was like the slogan. Now it's changed to stay alert. Stay alert. I can't remember the middle one. Save lives. But it's interesting because this thing in the UK is we've had it pretty bad over here, and a lot of people are criticising the government for their handling of the way it's happened, and because they've been a bit confusing with their messaging, they're not particularly clear, and they're trying to provide a broad narrative for a lot of people, but obviously the reality is there's lots of little questions about, well, what does that mean, stay alert? Like stay alert to what? But I think one of the things that they've tried to do is implement some of the things from New Zealand, which is doing very well at the moment. in dealing with it, and in having a kind of a rating system of high to low alert for coronavirus. And there's five is the worst, and we're at 4, and they're trying to bring it down and things like that. But yeah, there's a lot of criticism over here in terms of how slow it was to all kind of start, and how we lost time at the very beginning, and we should have locked down maybe 2 weeks earlier or something like that. Because I think we've had the highest death rate in Europe now. But like I said, I've not. Well, the only experience we've had of it really is our next door neighbour is a NHS frontline worker. She works in the hospital, and she caught the virus, and she got very bad. She was on a ventilator in ICU, intensive care, and so we were really worried about her. But fortunately, she's now back home. It was, I think, pretty touch and go though. So we're very happy that she's back and safe. So that really brought it home. It was like literally next door. It was like, oh wow, this is, you know, so many world events happen to you, or happen in the world, and they're just on the TV. And but when they suddenly arrive in your street, it's very different. Have an actual effect on you. The testing in the UK was again quite slow.
Was there anything like panic shopping in the beginning?
Yes. So it has. I didn't really. I wasn't bothered by it too much. Like I didn't panic buy anything. And luckily we have a toilet roll subscription. There's a company called Who Gives a Crap, is this toilet roll company, and they send you 36 toilet rolls every like 2 months or something, and they're eco-friendly and whatnot. So we were lucky in that regard, because there wasn't any toilet roll on the shelves at all, but luckily we had like a whole stack of them at home, so we were all right. There was pasta and all those dried foods were in the first few weeks were gone. There was the longest I had to queue to get into a shop was about an hour one day. I think that was just because I picked the timing badly. I went around after lunchtime, but the rest of the time I've been able to go in and do my shopping okay. Yeah, kind of. I think that we had more of a luxury to kind of not, because it's only me and my wife. We don't have to panic buy lots of stuff to keep us going. We can survive on what's in our fridge and freezer for a little bit. So yeah, that was okay.
Is there also any restrictions or on movement within the UK?
Yeah. So travel, you should only travel if it's essential. There were cases of people kind of, so you can go for one walk a day, or like some exercise a day. And early on, people were kind of maybe driving to a nicer area to go for their walk. And then that was kind of condemned and was said, okay, no, you should be walking within your own area. Shouldn't really be driving, because some people were driving to the Peak District and going for a nice walk in the hills up there, which is a very scenic part of England. But that was one of the things that was kind of a bit like what like I think there was some police reports of people walking in the Peak District, like a few cars, like a handful of people. It's like, why are you wasting your time like sorting these people going out for a walk when there's probably people like, or you need to be policing other stuff that's a bit more serious than that. So that was, I remember that being on the news and being like, just let them go for a walk. It's like not hurting anybody in the Peak District. It's the people that are there's some parks in London that were just absolutely rammed apparently during but I know some of it's all sensationalized by the media as well, or especially on Twitter, people getting really angry, and you're realizing,
Do you know the borders are probably closed, right?
Yes, yeah, the borders are closed, but they're thinking of. So on Sunday there was some more announcements, and they're going to reopen the borders, and then people coming into the country will be quarantined for 14 days, and I think, although, so my friend Mark, he travels a lot before the quarantine, and he was in, I think he was in Colombia at the time, and he had to come back from Colombia through a few countries, and in every single country he had to be quarantined. This was quite early on, and he had to wait for a week there and move on and whatnot until he could get on a plane back to England. But when he got to England, he just walked in and there was no quarantine. All the people at the airport weren't wearing any PPE or anything, and he was like, "This is the first country, my own country, where like no one seems to be caring about this at all." So that was like a bit of a worrying thing to begin with. It was like, oh my word, surely that's like the first place you need to start protecting people, but no. So yeah, that hence why I think we've got one of the highest rates in the world now, which is for a small island. We've got a barrier, we've got the sea to protect us, and yet we still haven't managed to contain it. I've started baking bread. That's been one of my things. Like, I think everybody started making their own bread. Flour is scarce in the shops, so but I managed to get some online, a big bag of flour. So I've been making my own bread and bagels, and I want to have a go at pretzels. I've been doing a bit of housework, fixing all those jobs that you needed to do. So repainted a few bits and bobs and done some housework and things. It's been quite nice to slow down and not feel like you're missing out on anything, because no one else is doing anything as well. And whereas before it was like, it's the weekend, let's see what everyone's doing, and maybe kind of getting, you're spending more energy at the weekend than you are at work, and then you're getting burnt out. And just this idea of like, I'm not missing anything, I'm just able to sit and be here, which is kind of how I live my life anyway. But
Nice.
I think for a lot of people, it's brought that pressure level down of, I have to do all these things. It's just reduced that and made it a lot less stressful. And I know I haven't looked into this very much, but apparently there's a poll that was done that says that people really want to focus more on well-being now after this whole thing, because they've had a chance just to slow down and go, actually, maybe this pace of life, despite all these horrible things with the virus, this pace of life is actually more conducive to being happy. So that's been interesting result from what people have been doing in lockdown. And yeah, we've had more interaction with our neighbours than we normally would have. So yeah, interesting. I think the world will be a different place. I know the government are bringing out there's a mobile app that's being tested on the Isle of Wight, which is a small off the coast of England. There's an island with a small population, and it's about track and trace. So it might be one of the ways to ease the lockdown is to know who's been in contact with who's had the virus, and then you can isolate like that. Right, so I know that Apple and Google teamed together to make something that worked as a track and trace thing, but the UK government have decided not to use the Google Apple one and make their own, which people over here are a little bit kind of suspicious of, because with the Google Apple app, none of the information is centralized, like it all happens between the two phones. But with the UK government app, all of the information goes to the UK government and is centralized. And so there's that extra surveillance level that people are, no one likes that, really, having all that extra surveillance and things. But it's that balance of trust and wanting to stay safe, which is interesting.
Thank you so much for telling me all this. It was really interesting.
Absolute pleasure. No worries. It's been fun. Thanks.